Okay. We're good to go? Okay, I don't actually know what to call this podcast yet, so I'm just going to call it for now, The Podcast. This is episode 2 of The Podcast, and I'm sitting here with comedy legend Alexei Sayle. Alexei, thanks for doing this.
Hi.
We're sitting in the Bull on Dublin Street, which is right next to the Liverpool docks, and the whole area is about to be redeveloped, but this is still a community-led kind of space. What importance do spaces like this have to performing artists? Did they have any influence in your early career, perhaps?
Not massively. I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? That artists were the kind of Jesuits of gentrification, weren't they? The people who, went into the kind of softened up, the colonies for the later arrival. Because, the process has been, certainly from like New York in the 70s, 80s, like Tribeca, and they opened up those warehouse spaces, which are now like extremely expensive real estate, and similarly in London, the YBAs like Tracy Emin and Damien Hirst opened up Shoreditch, which was places to get stabbed, and now it's
now it's Shoreditch,
multi-million pound hotels, and so that's a thing that happens.
So is this the artist as the kind of foot soldier of
gentrification,
right?
yeah.
I'm actually a journalist. I'm a gossip columnist on What's On in Stoke Newington. Yeah, you might have seen it. It's a big piece of paper with fuck all written on it, The lifestyle in Stoke Newington is terribly alternative, It really is. Everybody's growing their own denim, And I actually knit my own yogurts. It's really tastic, And I've been on my holidays this year, went to a Greek island, Domestos,
There's a contradiction there, thinking that it's obviously this art flourishes in these kind of marginal spaces because there's a flexibility. And again, I suppose there's also the point that the artists who start off in these marginal spaces then go on to become, multi-millionaire, some of them anyway.
Yeah.
And the bands that play here, some of them get, I shouldn't have eaten that. They get
fucking nice cake.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess, I don't know, it's interesting contradiction, isn't it, that we were saying in the car that like London is now literally run out of those.
Yeah.
There is no more kind of marginal space. So what are artists going to do now?
Yeah.
I think they can't, there are no more scruffy areas.
Well, that would be like carving out your own kind of space in like various derelict buildings when capitalism sort of sees fit to open those spaces up, we built a small cinema in Liverpool a while ago, and it was out of the shell of an old courthouse, this big red Edwardian building. We managed to get in there for like 2 years and create something really great in there, and then some property developers came along, and now it's being sold off and it's becoming like luxury flats and stuff. So there are spaces that come and go.
There are in Liverpool, but there aren't in London. Is literally, there is nowhere.
Right.
There are no derelict buildings in London.
Right.
There isn't one.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, it looks derelict, it's still owned by Chinese oligarchs.
So you reckon there would still be the possibility of having something like the Comedy Store as it was back when
you see, the Comedy Store, wasn't part of that. The Comedy Store, and that's why my career was, the Comedy Store was a strip club and was an established part of Soho, was a commercial space, and so and one of the things that we were very concerned to do was, in fact, this Peter Richardson started the conversation, that we didn't want it to be in a pub. When we moved the Comedy Store to the Comic Store in 1980, we very much wanted it to be in another strip club.
Yeah. We
didn't want it to be in like a room above a pub or in a warehouse space or something like that, because that wasn't. We wanted to try and while the material occupied a kind of obviously libertarian ethos, that we wanted the spaces to still be like proper show business.
Right. Yeah.
What you should understand is that before venues like the Comedy Store came along, there were only two ways you could become a stand-up comic. The first way was to do the clubs and opportunity knocks and new faces, and the main requirements for that sort of work were A, a number of female relatives you wanted to publicly humiliate, and B, the kind of racial xenophobia that made Oswald Mosley look like a frozen jubbly. Or you can go straight to the BBC and have an interview that went,
So, you want to be one of those comedian chappies, do you?
"Ooh, yes please, sir."
What makes you think you'll be any good for the job?
"Well, I've got a first from Cambridge, sir."
Good show. What shall I put you down for, Python or Goody?
And before you could say, "Is this a cheese shop?" George Harrison was giving you millions of pounds. So, if you hadn't either got a psychotic loathing of the underclasses or Latin O-level, you didn't stand a chance.
And all that changed in 79, did it, Grandad?
Well, you must also remember that a lot of other things changed in 1979. You see, one of the traditional spawning grounds of young comedians had always been the Northern Working Men's Clubs. But not long after 79, they did away with working men and the North.
But is there still a place for alternative comedy in sort of the mainstream media? Or has it gotten a lot more difficult now to...
I think it's, I mean, it's, I mean, obviously comedy is a massive business now, but I mean, well, there's two kind of distinct schools, isn't there? Really, it seems to me, in terms of comedy, there's the arena acts of McIntyre, John Bishop,
Liverpool Echo, huge.
Yeah, all that bollocks. Yeah, and then there's also, but there's also extremely popular at the top end. There's the old, I think they still would brand themselves as alternative comedians. Obviously, Stuart Lee, and Stuart's playing big venues.
Yeah,
he
was up here the other day, I think. Stuart.
Where did he play?
Where was it?
Philharmonic.
Yeah, I think so.
That'd be him. that's him all over. So, and Josie Long, Robbins, people like that. So they're also big. And then I think probably if you're a young comic, you attach yourself to either of those kind of polarities, really. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you've spoken a lot about the sort of crossover between politics and comedy. In the age we're in now, with people like Donald Trump and Theresa May, is it becoming more or less difficult to satirise political figures, given that they are so obviously and openly inept?
I think, it seems to me now, I was surprised, and I didn't do comedy for 17 years, and I went back to it in 2012, 2013. I was surprised that after the crash in 2008, I was amazed that there wasn't a huge movement doing political comedy then, really. But for whatever reason, there wasn't. It seems to me that there is then and now, and particularly now with Trump, and it's not that you want to do shit about Theresa May or Donald Trump particularly, but there seems to me that there is an audience out there, a large audience out there that is desperate to have their views articulated, and it's not necessarily about the subject matter, but more about the way that what you talk about. And I just did a very successful show in massive, darling, it was
Get out.
the Guardian review. Actually, I've got terrible review in time, but
Fuck him.
yeah, it's because I'm strong,
Yeah, right.
Because of a Thatcherite, but the material that I was doing stuff, it was, I've only done like 30 gigs of it now. I intend to do more, but I don't. But the range of material that I did stuff about, like I talked about, for instance, the ownership of the Iranian mobile phone network.
Yeah.
Amazingly managed to get gags out of that. And and I talked about in general about.
Can you shut the window, mate? Thanks.
I talked in general about, I guess, capitalism and and I don't think you mentioned May particularly. And I mentioned Trump a bit at the end, but it's not what people are crying out for, particularly specific, like, you know, Donald Trump's an idiot, but there is a figure, there's a, you know, you see it in, obviously, in Jeremy Corbyn and all that stuff. You see it, that people want a comedy that reflects, you know, desperate for a kind of comedy that reflects how they're feeling right now.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the horror of Donald Trump is, I mean, did you see that thing the other day where he made up an African country?
Did he?
It was Nambia or something like that. He was actually in Africa at the time talking
Really?
to a bunch of African leaders, and he mentioned this country, the Nambia, which it doesn't exist, it's not a real country. And that would be really, really funny, like, that would be a funny thing to satire. It'd be almost funny for, like, George Bush to, like, satirise something, like, taking the piss out of him, but Donald Trump actually does it. That's so the funny thing almost becomes quite horrifying.
It's like in a movie, isn't it? You know, it's like if he was playing it. Well, he is in a way playing. He's playing a comedy president in the movie, apart from the threat of nuclear war. So. See, I'm not that bothered about that. I've had a good.
That doesn't strike me as anything, because I think that's a massive dick swinging contest, and also, you know, he's from this like reality TV kind of background, where you're supposed to have conflict, you're supposed to have engagements and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's taken his TV reality star personality. I mean, he's a failed businessman, but in The Apprentice, he was a very successful businessman. Now he's the fucking president, so he's just transferring that like up now towards being the president of the United States.
Entre. Hello, I've come to join the police force, but I shouldn't think you'd take me. Hey, aren't you Benito Mussolini, conqueror of Abyssinia and former dictator of Italy? No.
Sir Edward Craybrother Jones, I think this inquiry does highlight a worry uppermost in many people's minds at the moment. Nearly 700 council house residents now crushed to death in their own front sitting room by falling elephants. And what have you got to say about these notorious new tower blocks in Newham? These 20-storey tower blocks, which we now know to have been constructed not from high tensile concrete, as you claimed at the time, but from coconut meringue. Now, isn't this just a flagrant case of cutting corners with public money?
Yes. Well, now, basically the thing is this. I want to go home now to my mummy.
I heard the other day, listening to some of your stuff, that actually I think it was on your blog, that you used to bump into Boris Johnson because he used to live on your street. Is that true? What was that like?
His office,
right? Yeah.
His office was.
What's Boris like? What's he really like?
What's he really like?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna. Yeah, we must meet every week, and then don't hear from him for 4 years. Same as Lenny. Yeah, well, his office, the Spectator used to be in my street. But the other thing was that we were both motoring correspondents, because I had a column.
Boris was a motoring correspondent?
Yeah, he was the motoring correspondent of, I think, Esquire. It may have been GQ, I'm not sure. And he knew fuck all about cars. And the first time I ever saw him, he was in my square, and I was in my Alfa Romeo 166 in the Vola Blue, which is very interesting. Anyway, he was sitting.
Did he like that colour?
He said, oh, you own that, do you? So he had noticed it. Boris was sitting in a Mercedes S-Class, but he was sitting on the roof with his feet in through the sun roof. So he was sitting on the roof. No, he was having his photo taken. But,
right, okay.
So he was sitting on the roof of the thing, and with his feet through the sunroof. And I just pulled up and said, I'm Alexei. He said, he'd noticed my Alpha. Oh, then we had a chat, and then I used to see him. And I remember once I told him that I bumped into him on the corner, and he said, what are you driving? And he said, I've got a Saab convertible. And I said, you know, that's just a Vauxhall, not Cavalier, the one that came out.
Vectra?
Vauxhall Vectra underneath, same engines and, the suspension architecture. And he got out like a leaky old fountain pen, and he wrote all that down because he didn't know anything about that. Ooh, totally interesting. He seemed to, I mean, at the time he was just starting out. I mean, the bit that I do in the show is, that, and it's true, I mean, it's sort of based on that, he had such upper class charm that I found myself kind of seduced by him a little bit.
A lot of people sort of said that.
Yeah, he had tremendous, which I think as he's got older, is kind of, I mean, I haven't seen him in person for years, but it's kind of curdled as he's
gone off
older.
the rails a bit, hasn't he, of late?
Yeah, it can happen, you know, that youthful, I mean, he's obviously a fucking bastard, but I mean, you know, yeah, it's kind of curdled that, really. I mean, for a while it was kind of, you know, if you didn't look too closely, it was kind of charming. You know, he rode a bike, you know, I mean, I saw him on the Edgware Road once, just when my man was going past on the bus, and he was like, being shouted at by a taxi driver on his bike, and, you know, and he lived in Islington. I mean, my friend lives near him in Islington. She couldn't get to sleep because of people outside his house shouting, yelling at him, you know.
What?
Threats. No, it was generally demonstrations.
Yeah.
People would gather.
Is this Brexit time?
Must be Brexit time.
Yeah, bloody hell.
And you know, he seemed charming, really, but I think that's curdled down. His kind of his dark side is more than taken over.
What's brought you back round to stand up again? I think
Really
you
not.
got a bit sick of it for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't. You know, I think you know, there's such a demand. When I went back to it in 2013, I really enjoyed it. So. And I found a new way for me to do it. You know, this time it was hard to work. I don't know. I think if you've got a skill like that, you should probably use it.
Right. How's the shows going? All right.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, no, really amazing.
The blog thing mentions it was a bit of a difficult space. Why was that?
It was awful. Well, you know, I mean, the thing about Edinburgh is that they had that.
Was it a warehouse?
It wasn't a warehouse. No, it would have been all right. It was a warehouse. It was the recital room at the music department at the university, and so I think the audience space was actually very dead, so they couldn't hear each other laughing. So you depend on that kind of rolling kind of laughter. I mean, it was fine. I mean, it was a testament to my extraordinary skill that I killed in that room. I mean,
you killed in the room?
I fucking killed. I mean, you know,
fucking machine gun that room.
Yeah, that's a comedian's talk. Kill. Yeah, fucking last few nights I was like, oh,
knocking them over.
Aphorism. Humorous observation. Metaphor. Slam. Righteous anger. Kaboom.
Lady Allen, you sit the roll baby, Lady Allen. Yeah, Lady Allen. Go here, Lady Allen. Come here, Lady Allen. Lady Allen, and the royal baby. Can you throw the royal baby a couple of feet up in the air, Lady Allen? Just a couple of feet up in the air with the royal baby, Lady Allen. Whoa! Lady Allen, Lady Allen, can you juggle with the royal baby? Juggle with the royal baby, Lady Allen. Juggle. Lady Allen, can you juggle the royal baby? But with these two ferrets in the royal baby, Lady Allen. Juggle with the two ferrets in the royal baby. Lovely, lovely, Lady Allen, can you drop kick the royal baby? Can you drop kick the royal baby like a rugby ball? Can you drop kick it? There we go. We missed that, Lady Allen. Can you do it again? Talk, I will get it. We've got ladders. Can you, like, oh look, Prince Philip. Oh, lovely. One more.
Nice little sprinkling of righteous anger.
Yeah.
I was listening to your thing the other day about politics and political beliefs. I think it was a sandwich shop episode.
Sandwich bar
episode. So imaginary sandwich bar. Can we expect to see more of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
it could be on your radios in November. We'll record tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow night I'm recording episodes 1 and 2 of the new series 2.
What was the sort of inspiration behind the imaginary sandwich shop idea?
The sandwich bar.
Sandwich bar, sorry.
Shop something different.
Explain to us why didn't you call it the imaginary sandwich shop?
Nah, it's a sandwich bar. Because, well, it was just, I mean, I'd always had a very unhappy relationship really with the woman who was, Caroline Raphael, who was the head of comedy on Radio 4 for a long time. And we just never really got on. And then a couple of years ago she left and she was replaced by a woman called Charlotte Williams, who's just much better, you know, we'd love to, you should be on Radio 4 really. And I'm like, yeah, fucking right, I should be. So she said, well, you really do whatever you want. And so then I just started to think really about what I'd like to do really, and it all just came very quickly really. I mean, I've got a wonderful producer who's a young guy from Joe Nunnery, who's from Wavertree. I know it's probably the only producer in BBC Comedy who didn't go to Eton. I have genuinely been telling people that I run a sandwich bar since the 70s. Sometimes I do. I say, if I'm at a party with, I used to, if I'm at a party with somebody I didn't know, and they'd say, this happened to me or something, and I'd say, oh yeah, that happened at my sandwich brothers. And they'd say, you've got a sandwich brother? I say, yeah, it's sort of like when business slows, I'm not going to be in this business.
Fucking with their minds.
Yeah, well, no, it's not about that. I'm not fucking with their minds. I'm just being somebody else.
Right, yeah.
They're kind of, I'm not trying to mess with them. But I just, and it's like at a party, you don't want to talk about, I'd much rather talk about work or, what's Lenny Henry like, really like. And,
what's he really like?
What's he really like?
What? Because I've always suspected.
He's alright. Doesn't listen. But he doesn't listen when you talk to him. He's always like, oh, I'm going to do this every week and I don't see it before you. That's another thing. So it's much more interesting the party to talk about you. So we're having great success with Yorkshire pudding is the new baked potato.
Yeah.
I would say you get it's really like because you get baked potato, different fillings and
lime tuna, bit
of
coriander,
kind of thing. Yeah. But I think chili con carne in a Yorkshire pudding. Yeah, but she then get on like a kind of fluted kind of cardboard, a choice of gravies, and to talk about they're like really, so, the Yorkshire pudding's the new baked potato. I'm like, yeah,
sounds delicious.
Yeah. And I talk about we're getting a lot of getting a lot of Iraqi refugees coming into the sandwich bar at the moment. I would talk about, and sometimes I would make it clear that it was it was kind of bit, I was being comedic, but sometimes I wouldn't, I wouldn't let on really. So I started off with that idea, and then so I just thought that would be it's an interesting proposition for the radio really, that because you can only do imaginary sandwich bar on radio, I think, because it doesn't work if you do it on the television. And so I just thought, no, I just wrote a load of stuff. I mined all my old columns and stuff. And, I mined the stand-up tour from 2012, and I wrote some new material, and then we did it. Yeah. But this business of getting older is a strange thing. For me, it's amazing how much history I've lived through. Like, a lot's changed since I invented alternative comedy. One of the things that distressed me is the role of the topical TV comedy panel show in the rehabilitation of the reputations of war criminals. When I say war criminals, I mean people like John Prescott and Alistair Campbell. People who led us into 2 illegal wars in which hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people have died. I mean, if Joseph Goebbels was alive today,
He wouldn't be on trial at Nuremberg. He'd be hosting Have I Got News for You? At least when she lost power, Thatcher had the good grace to slink off into an alcoholic haze. But people like Alistair Campbell and Ed Balls will do anything to remain in the public eye. Alistair Campbell talks movingly on Panorama about his depression. Of course you're depressed, you bastards, you're a mass murderer! Doesn't matter how many marathons you run, you'll never get away from your conscience.
Is there anything funny about the current state we're in, politically?
There's humour to be derived from it. It's not innately funny. But I mean, that's not the job of, you know, the job of the comic is not to
Because you've mentioned
just comment on, you know, obvious shit. It's to find humour. Yeah, well, my kind of comic. Well, the best comics find humour in, you know, the oddest of places, really. You know, but you know, it's like I always think the worst thing you can do as a comic is to do stand up about TV adverts.
Right, yeah.
Talking about you, Ben Elton. But, you know, I mean, because TV adverts, by their very nature, are fucking stupid.
Yeah.
You know, that's because they're trying to convince you that one thing is different to another identical thing. They're going to be idiotic. Mm-hmm. You can't, you know, do comedy about that. It's just banal, you know. You should find humour, you know, in other places, really.
I do particularly enjoy your impressions on the sandwich bar stuff, especially the one of Neil Kinnock.
It makes me. I mean, I think it's just, yeah. For those of you who haven't heard it, but I just say, oh, you know, here's a celebrity, and everybody just talks the same. They go, we've got it.
It's almost like they're not even worth doing an impression out of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, partly that, and we've got like Ayatollah Khomeini's on the new show.
Right.
So I'm doing that, but in Farsi. Ayatollah Khomeini comes in, and I'm like, I can't, I've got it in front of me. Mushadek Kush Al-Hambi, and he goes, Ayatollah Khomeini, founder of the Islamic Republic.
You'd have to give us a preview of it in the event that's coming up. So.
Yeah.
So I think we're coming up to about 40 minutes now, so yeah, let's leave it there. Alexei, thank you very much
You're very
for doing
welcome.
this. Cheers.
I'll be, I've given my everything now. When I do the event, I'll be like, yeah, no.